Please welcome to the show America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. He's fantastic with numbers himself. The linchpin is going to be the CPI and see how that starts everything off tomorrow, and then away from there we'll go. Nobody knows what it's going to come in at because I've been getting these things wrong all year. But what are your thoughts, and are you still in the recession camp? Are you short, deep, long, shallow? What do you think?
So to start with, Scott, let me say this. I don't think that Jerome Powell is going to change direction based upon where this CPI number comes in. Now, obviously, PPI, as you said before, came in a little bit higher than people thought. Where CPI will fall, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. It feels like it's going to be high. And the reason I say that maybe because everybody was paying attention to what those costs were, let's say, through Thanksgiving, and how so much of the goods and services that we buy just seem to be costing more and more. So based upon that, I think that we're going to see, and my guess would be CPI comes in higher than expected, number one, and then number two, behind that, in terms of the longer term, I think we're going to be in this situation, that feeling of recession, throw that aside is what the definition is, because that always changes. So what feels like recession, I think that's going to be around for a while, because I just don't see inflation moving the way it needs to.
Well, it always goes up way faster than it comes down, doesn't it? And I think one of those stingiest things, I mean, look, in a good news kind of a thing, it's not good news when house prices come off, but that's going to help CPI. That we're going to see oil coming off like it has done is going to help CPI. Some of the crops that we talk about on our market day report show here every day is going to help CPI. But there are other things that are going to hurt it. And sometimes we get surprised by some, but one of them is labor. I mean, that's just not going to come off like folks think. We've got Jim Urio on the show. We ask him all the time. Yeah, your food costs can come down, but you can't turn and walk back to the kitchen and say, oh, by the way, can I have that raise back? Right? I mean, it's just not going to happen that way. So I think, when John Williams, the Fed chair, the president of the Fed, New York Fed, said he thinks inflation is going to be definitely an issue into 2024, and we're probably not going to hit 2% until 2025. That did not shock me. Did it shock you?
No, not at all. Listen, I think that the data that we see, Scott, is a little bit deceiving, right? What exactly goes into these numbers? And you're right about the impact that wage inflation has on overall inflation, for the very reason you're talking about. As labor costs go up and people are paid more, that number does not roll back down. You see so many states across the country increasing the minimum wage, and that creates a wage compression where people who were making above minimum wage, right, they're also getting raises. So across the board, you have that. And then on top of that, we still have a very tight labor market, right? Still 10 million job openings out there. What does that mean? That means wages are going to stay high for a while. That trickles right down to the goods and services people buy. So I'm not surprised by that comment, and in fact, I would agree with it.
Yeah, it gets back to that wage price spiral, right? Because the more money you make, the more money you've got to go buy the stuff that's more expensive, and then slowly but surely you ask for another wage. I mean, look what's I think California is putting in, say, $22 an hour now for some of these workers in some of these fast food joints. I mean, I don't understand why they don't take just one basic economics class, but that's going to raise prices for everything, right? I mean, that is the exact wrong thing to do, other than just giving people money, right?
Well, it's ironic, Scott, because the people that you're trying to help that are at that minimum wage level, you're actually hurting them. And we see it firsthand because inflation is increasing or outpacing wage inflation. So as these things are working themselves through the system, those who are at the lower end of the compensation scale are actually getting hurt worse as that works its way through things like PPI and CPI.
Well, I can't wait to get that number tomorrow, because that's going to really shape things going forward. And you say it's going to be hot. I mean, boy, we just can't afford to have that happen, because there's a lot of folks out there talking some doom and gloom when it comes to what that would do to the equity markets. So just to review to everybody out there, we get some hot CPI, equities are most likely going to sell off, right, Dan?
Yeah, they will. And listen, I'm not necessarily predicting that, but it wouldn't surprise. It's hard to predict it because who knows? But
I agree.
Scott, all I'm saying is this: it wouldn't surprise me because it just feels that way.
I agree. All right. I really appreciate you coming on. Dan Geltrude, Nutley, New Jersey. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sitting in for me, too. We still get some good comments about that. Now,